In the grand amphitheater of the Galactic Council, silence fell like a heavy curtain. The chamber stretched upward for hundreds of meters, its walls lined with glowing runes and shifting star maps. Delegates from over 200 species filled the tiered seats, some floating in anti-grav bubbles, others rooted in nutrient-rich soil, a few encased in armored exosuits. They had gathered to mark a historic moment, the official eradication of the last known apex predator in the known galaxy. Elder Kalor of the Vorthax stood at the central podium, his forearms folded over his broad chest, his eyes glowing faintly violet. "The Void Maw," he announced, his voice resonating through the hall like rolling thunder. "Once consumed entire fleets and left dead zones in its wake. It has been neutralized. Its last egg was incinerated 3 solar cycles ago." A wave of approval rippled through the crowd. Another delegate, a slender being made of interwoven light filaments from the Lumina Collective, chimed in. "The Crimson Hive no longer spreads its neural plague." Their queen's final broadcast was one of silence. Each species took turns listing the monsters they had hunted to extinction: planet-cracking worms, mind-eating fungi, swarms that stripped atmospheres bare. They spoke with pride, as if wiping out life, no matter how dangerous, was the highest form of civilization. In the farthest observation tier, near the dimmest lighting, a human woman stood alone. She wore a plain gray jumpsuit with no rank, no emblem, just a small silver pin shaped like a leaf. Her name was Lisa Morgan. She was 32, born in Kansas, raised on stories of storms and sunflowers, and now Earth's sole representative to the Council. Humanity had only been granted observer status 6 weeks ago, after quietly rerouting a collapsing hyperspace lane that saved 3 trade worlds from economic ruin. Most aliens still thought of humans as soft, emotional, and far too young to matter. Lisa watched the celebration with quiet eyes. She didn't frown. She didn't smirk. She simply listened, and when Elder Kalor declared, "The galaxy is now free of its deadliest creatures," something inside her shifted. Without hesitation, she raised her hand. The motion was small, almost lost in the vastness of the hall, but the Council's AI, ever watchful, highlighted her in a soft blue glow. Every eye turned, a murmur spread. "The Earthling?" someone whispered. What could she possibly add? Elder Kalor tilted his head. "Observer Morgan, you have a statement?" Lisa stepped forward. Her boots made soft clicks on the smooth floor. She walked to the center platform where the holographic records of extinct beasts still swirled in the air. Jagged teeth, coiled tentacles, burning eyes. "You speak of the deadliest creatures," she said, her voice calm but clear. "As if you've seen them all." A reptilian delegate from the Xylos system let out a low hiss. "Are you claiming your species faced worse?" Lisa didn't flinch. "I'm not claiming anything. I'm offering context." She tapped her wristband. The hologram changed. Instead of alien nightmares, it showed black and white footage. Cities flattened by bombs, oceans choked with waste, forests burning under orange skies. Then color returned. Scientists planting coral reefs, volunteers rebuilding homes after floods, a child handing water to a stranger in a refugee camp. On Earth, Lisa said, our deadliest predator wasn't some beast from the deep void. It was us. Silence deepened. Even the ambient hum of the station seemed to pause. "We invented weapons that could end all life in minutes," she continued. "We hunted animals to extinction for sport. We poisoned our own air and water. We built walls between people who spoke different languages, worshipped different gods, loved differently. We called it progress. We called it security. But it was fear. And fear made us cruel." She looked around, meeting the gaze of each delegate, no matter how strange or intimidating they appeared. "But here's what you won't find in your extinction logs. We also chose to stop. Not all at once. Not perfectly. But we tried. We passed laws to protect the weak. We cleaned our rivers. We taught our children that kindness matters more than winning. We reached for the stars not to conquer, but to learn." The Lumina delegate flickered softly. "Changed your nature?" "We didn't change it," Lisa corrected gently. "We chose to rise above it. Every day. That's the hard part. It's easy to destroy. It's hard to heal." Elder Kalor leaned forward, his expression unreadable. "You say your species was its own enemy. Yet you survived." "Barely," Lisa admitted. "And not without scars. But survival isn't just about living. It's about what you become while you're alive." A young delegate from the moss-covered world of Grellis spoke up. their voice like rustling leaves. "Did you eradicate your inner darkness?" Lisa shook her head. "No. You can't eradicate it. It's part of being alive. But you can decide not to feed it. You can choose compassion over control, connection over conquest." She paused, then added, "That's why Earth still has war, still has greed, still has pain. But it also has hospitals, libraries, music, and people who plant trees they'll never sit under. That balance? That's our strength." The chamber remained still. No one clapped. No one argued. They simply absorbed her words, as if hearing a truth they'd long forgotten. Later, in the quiet corridors outside the amphitheater, Lisa walked alone. The station's artificial gravity felt heavier than usual. She stopped by a viewport and stared out at the swirling nebula beyond. Earth was a pale blue dot in a distant spiral arm, fragile, forgotten by most, but alive. She thought of her grandmother, who used to say, "Honey, the world breaks everyone, but afterward, many are strong at the broken places." Lisa had carried those words across light years. Back in her small quarters aboard the council station, she opened a sealed message from home. It was a video from her younger sister, Maya, standing in their family's sunflower field. "Hey Lisa," Maya said, grinning. "The rains came early this year. The flowers are taller than me. Mom says to tell you, don't forget where you're from." Even out there, Lisa smiled. She wouldn't forget. The next morning, the council reconvened. But the mood had shifted. Instead of listing more extinct species, delegates began sharing stories of their own struggles, civil wars, ecological collapses, near extinctions caused not by outsiders, but by themselves. The Krog admitted they once enslaved their own young for labor. The Xanthera confessed their crystalline society nearly shattered from internal rigidity. Lisa listened, saying little, but her presence alone seemed to open a door. By midday, Elder Kalor called for a special session. "We have long measured strength by destruction," he said, his voice quieter now. "But perhaps we have been wrong. Perhaps true power lies in the ability to heal." He turned to Lisa. "Observer Morgan, will Earth share its methods of societal recovery?" Lisa nodded. "We don't have a manual, just practice, and patience, and the belief that people can change." Over the next few days, Lisa met with small groups of delegates. She didn't lecture. She told stories about the Montreal Protocol that healed the ozone layer, about the Paris Agreement, flawed but hopeful, about communities that rebuilt after hurricanes, wildfires, and riots, not with weapons but with shared meals and listening circles. Some aliens found it strange. "You trust each other after so much harm?" asked a gelatinous envoy from the Droon cluster. "Not always," Lisa said honestly. "But we try, because the alternative is loneliness, and no species survives alone." As weeks passed, Lisa's status quietly changed. She was no longer just an observer. She was consulted on peace initiatives, ecological restoration projects, even youth education programs. Other species began sending their own healers, not soldiers or scientists, but poets, teachers, gardeners. One evening, as she walked through the newly planted Unity Garden on Level 7, a place where soil from 50 worlds mixed under artificial suns, she saw a young delegate from a war-torn moon, carefully watering a patch of earth. It was seeded with Kansas sunflower seeds Lisa had brought. "They grow fast," the child said shyly. "They do," Lisa replied. "Even in hard ground." The child looked up. "Is it true your people almost destroyed yourselves?" "Yes," Lisa said. "And then we remembered we loved each other too much to let go." The child nodded slowly as if storing the words for later. Back in her room that night, Lisa recorded a message for Earth. "They're starting to understand," she said softly. "Not all of them, but enough. And maybe that's how peace begins, not with treaties but with stories." She ended the recording and looked at the stars. Earth was still flawed, still fighting itself, but it was trying. And in a galaxy obsessed with erasing threats, that quiet, daily effort to be better was the rarest thing of all. Lisa Morgan hadn't come to prove humanity was strong. She'd come to show that strength wasn't about never falling. It was about getting back up, again and again, and reaching a hand to help others rise too. And in that, Earth had already won. Weeks passed since Lisa Morgan's quiet words had rippled through the Galactic Council. What began as a single speech grew into something no one expected. A shift in how the galaxy saw strength. species that once measured power by fleet size or weapon yield, now asked Earth for advice on conflict resolution, ecological healing, and even emotional education. Lisa found herself hosting small gatherings in the Unity Garden, where delegates sat on smooth stones and shared stories not of conquest, but of loss, regret, and hope. One afternoon, a tall, silver-scaled delegate from the ocean world of Thalassar approached her. His name was Virel, and his people had spent centuries hunting the deep-sea leviathans they believed threatened their cities. Only recently had they learned the leviathans were not predators. They were guardians, singing songs that stabilized the planet's core. In their fear, the Thalassari had nearly wiped them out. "We thought we were protecting our young," Virel said, his voice low, "but we were silencing the very voice that kept our world alive." Lisa listened without judgment. "On Earth," she said, "we did the same with wolves. We called them monsters, but they kept the forests healthy. When we killed them, the deer overgrazed, the rivers eroded, and everything fell apart. It took us decades to bring them back." Virel's gills fluttered. "How did you learn to listen?" "We failed enough times," Lisa replied simply. "Pain teaches if you let it." That conversation sparked a new initiative. With Lisa's help, the Council launched the Listening Protocol, a program where species studied not just the biology of other life forms, but their cultures, their songs, their roles in the web of existence. It was slow work. Old habits of fear and domination died hard, but seeds had been planted. Then came the distress call. It crackled through the Council's emergency channels one quiet evening. The signal came from the outer rim, near the shattered remains of the Void Maw's last nest. A small research outpost, staffed by 3 species, had gone silent. Scans showed strange energy spikes and rapid atmospheric decay. Rescue teams were dispatched, but none returned. Panic stirred. Whispers of a new predator, something worse than the Maw, spread through the corridors. Elder Kalor called an emergency session. "We must assume the worst," he declared. "Lock down the sector. Prepare eradication protocols." Lisa stood. "Wait." All eyes turned to her. "What if it's not a predator?" she asked. "What if it's a cry for help?" The reptilian delegate from Xylo scoffed. "You think a dying star system is asking for a hug?" "I think we've been wrong before," Lisa said calmly. "Let me go alone, no weapons. Just a translator and a recorder." The Council erupted in protest. "Suicide!" cried one. "Foolish sentimentality," shouted another. But Elder Kalor raised a hand. "Let her try. If she fails, we act as planned. If she succeeds, we learn something new." 2 days later, Lisa's small scout ship, the Horizon, drifted into the dead zone. The stars here were dim, the space thick with cosmic dust. The research outpost hung in orbit around a dying planet, its surface cracked and glowing faintly red. No signals, no movement. She docked gently and stepped inside. The air was stale but breathable. Lights flickered. Datapads lay scattered. She found logs, video entries from the lead scientist, a gentle botanist from Grellis named Nora. "Day 17, Nora whispered in one clip, her mossy skin pale with fear. "The planet isn't dead. It's dreaming, and we woke it too soon." Lisa followed the logs deeper into the facility, down to the observation deck. Through the reinforced glass, she saw it. The planet's surface pulsed with soft rhythmic light like a slow heartbeat, and rising from the cracks were tendrils of living crystal, not attacking but reaching. Searching. She activated her universal translator not for language but for biosignals. She sent a simple pulse, "We mean no harm." For hours, nothing. Then a response, not in words but in color. The crystals glowed blue, then green, then gold. Patterns emerged like music made of light. Lisa understood. The planet wasn't hostile. It was in pain. The research team had drilled too deep, too fast, disturbing a planetary consciousness that had slept for eons. In its confusion, it emitted energy waves that scrambled technology and induced fear, hence the panic, the silence. She recorded everything. Then she did something no soldier or scientist had done. She sat by the window, closed her eyes and breathed slowly, sending calm through the ship's external emitters, a human technique called co-regulation. She imagined roots growing from her feet into the planet, not to take but to connect. Slowly, the pulses softened. The light dimmed to a gentle hum. Back at the council station, Lisa presented her findings. She played the light patterns translated into sound, a haunting, beautiful melody. This isn't a weapon, she said. It's a lullaby. The planet is trying to return to sleep. It just needs peace, skeptics remained. But Varel stood. On Thalasser, our elders say the ocean sings when it's healing. Perhaps worlds sing too. Elder Kalor nodded. Withdraw all military. Send a care team, botanists, geologists, healers. No drills, no probes, just presence. The operation was a success. Within weeks, the planet's energy stabilized. The crystals receded. The outpost was repaired not as a lab, but as a listening post, a place to learn, not to exploit. Lisa's reputation grew. But she refused titles, honors, or a permanent seat on the council. I'm just a messenger, she'd say. The real wisdom comes from Earth, from everyone who chose kindness when anger was easier. Meanwhile, on Earth, news of Lisa's work spread. Schools began teaching galactic empathy. Farmers shared drought-resistant seeds with former enemies. Cities turned old military bases into peace parks. Humanity, watching itself through Lisa's eyes, began to see its own potential more clearly. But not all was peaceful. Deep in the Council's archives, a faction known as the Purifiers watched with growing unease. They believed the galaxy's safety depended on absolute control, on erasing anything unpredictable. To them, Lisa's ideas were dangerous. Compassion, they argued, was weakness disguised as virtue. Their leader, a former warlord named Drazok of the Iron Maw clan, began spreading rumors. The Earthling softens our resolve, he told his followers.
She makes us doubt our strength.
And doubt leads to extinction. One night, as Lisa walked back from the garden, 2 armored enforcers blocked her path. They wore no insignia, but their stance was rigid, aggressive. Observer Morgan, one said. You are summoned. By whom? She asked. By those who remember what survival truly costs. They led her not to the council chamber, but to a hidden chamber beneath the station, a relic from the early days of the Alliance used for interrogations. Drazok waited inside, his scarred face lit by a single red lamp. You speak of healing, he growled, but the universe does not heal. It consumes. The strong eat the weak. That is the only truth. Lisa stood straight. Then why are you afraid of a human woman with no weapons? Drazok's eyes narrowed. Because your words are infecting the council. They forget the old ways. They grow soft. Soft? Lisa said. Or wise. He stepped closer. Prove your way works. Not with flowers and songs. With real danger. He activated a view screen. It showed a distant system, Zanara Prime, where a civil war raged between 2 factions of the same species. Cities burned. Children starved. Fleets clashed in orbit. Go there, Drazok said, and stop it. Without force. Without threat. If you succeed, we will listen. If you fail, the council returns to strength. Not sentiment. Lisa knew it was a trap. Zanara Prime had been at war for 80 years. Countless peace efforts had failed. But she also knew refusal would confirm their worst view of humanity, as dreamers with no stomach for reality. I'll go, she said. 2 days later, she arrived at Zanara Prime alone, in the horizon. No escort, no weapons, just a satchel of seeds, a recorder, and a small photo of her grandmother's sunflower field. The Xenarans were tall, feathered humanoids with sharp eyes and sharper tongues. They met her at the landing zone with rifles raised. Earthling, one spat. Come to preach while our homes burn? I came to listen, Lisa said. They laughed. But something in her calm made them hesitate. They took her to the neutral zone, a ruined city square where both sides had agreed grudgingly not to fight. For 3 days, Lisa did nothing but sit. She ate simple rations. She drank rainwater. She watched children from both factions sneak glances at her from broken windows. On the 4th day, a young girl, barefoot, her feathers singed, approached. Why are you here? She asked. To remember that you're more than your war, Lisa replied. The girl frowned. My brother died in the last bombing. I'm sorry, Lisa said. I lost people too. To fear, to anger, to the belief that someone else's pain didn't matter. She reached into her satchel and pulled out a seed. This is from my home. It grows even in broken ground. Want to plant it with me? The girl hesitated, then nodded. They dug a small hole in the ash-covered soil. As they covered the seed, others gathered. First children, then elders, then soldiers with rifles slung low. Lisa didn't speak of peace. She spoke of gardens, of how roots connect underground, even when the plants above look different, of how sunflowers turn toward the light no matter how dark the sky. By the 10th day, both factions had agreed to a ceasefire, not because of treaties, but because they'd seen their children playing together in the same dirt, watering the same tiny green shoot. When Lisa returned to the council, Drezok was waiting. "You got lucky," he muttered. Months had passed since Lisa Morgan returned from Zanera Prime. The small sunflower she'd brought back now stood tall in her quarters, its golden face turned toward the light. News of the ceasefire had spread across the galaxy, not as a military victory but as a quiet miracle. Children on a dozen worlds began planting peace seeds in schoolyards. Even the Iron Maw clan had gone silent, though Lisa knew their doubt hadn't vanished, only retreated. But peace, she had learned, was never a finish line. It was a path walked daily. One morning, a priority alert flashed on her console. It came not from the council, but from Earth. Her sister Maya's face filled the screen, her eyes red-rimmed but steady. "Lisa," Maya said, voice trembling only slightly. "They found something in the Arctic ice. Something old. Something not human." Lisa's breath caught. For decades, Earth had uncovered ruins, alien crash sites, ancient probes, fragments of forgotten visits. But this was different. The signal buried in the ice wasn't debris. It was active, and it was calling. "It's repeating one word," Maya whispered, "over and over, in every known language, including some we've never heard." "What word?" Lisa asked. "Home." Within hours, Lisa was aboard the Horizon, heading back to Earth for the first time in over a year. The Council granted emergency clearance, though many feared the signal was a trap, a remnant of some dead empire waking up hungry. But Lisa knew better. The word home wasn't a threat. It was a plea. She landed in a remote research base near the North Pole. Snow stretched endlessly under a pale sun. Scientists in heavy coats greeted her with tired eyes and shaking hands. They led her to a deep ice cavern, where a smooth, obsidian-like object pulsed with soft blue light. It was no bigger than a human chest, shaped like a teardrop, covered in shifting symbols that seemed to breathe. "It responds to touch," said Dr. Ellis, the lead xenolinguist, "but only gentle contact. When we tried to scan it with high-energy beams, it went dark for 3 days." Lisa approached slowly. She knelt and placed her palm flat against its surface. Instantly, warmth spread through her arm. Images flooded her mind, not in words but in feelings. A vast ship, broken and drifting, a species with 6 limbs and eyes like liquid silver, singing as their world died. They had launched this beacon into the void, not to conquer but to remember, to say we were here, we loved. "We tried." Tears welled in Lisa's eyes. "It's a memory vault," she said softly, "not a weapon. A tombstone and a lullaby." The scientists exchanged glances. "So what do we do?" "We listen," Lisa replied. "And we honor it." She contacted the Galactic Council. Instead of demanding control or analysis, she proposed something new. A shared memorial. Every species would contribute a story of loss, of love, of what they wished to be remembered for. The vault would become a galactic archive of hope, not of power but of heart. Many agreed. But Drezok reappeared, his voice sharp over the comms. "You would turn a potential weapon into a shrine? Foolish. Would you rather burn a library because you fear the ideas inside?" Lisa countered. He had no answer. Back on Earth, Lisa worked with local communities to build a sanctuary around the vault. No fences, no guards, just open space and quiet. Indigenous elders from the north performed ceremonies. Children left drawings at the edge of the ice. The vault's light grew brighter, as if grateful. Then, without warning, it changed. One night the symbol stopped shifting, the blue glow dimmed, and from its core a single tone echoed, a note so pure it made the aurora borealis ripple in response. The vault opened. Inside was not data, not weapons, not even a body, just a single seed. Black, smooth, no larger than a pea. Lisa held it in her palm. It felt warm. Alive. Scientists ran tests. It was organic, but unlike anything on Earth or in known space. It needed no soil, no water, only sound. Specifically, harmonized voices. So Lisa did what humans did best. She gathered people. From every corner of the planet, singers came. Choirs, street performers, grandmothers humming lullabies, monks chanting ancient prayers. They stood in a circle around the seed, voices rising together in a song with no words, only feeling. As they sang, the seed trembled. Then it split open. From it grew a slender stalk, then leaves like spun glass, then a flower that shimmered with every color at once. When it bloomed, It released a pulse of light that shot into the sky, not as a beam but as a ripple spreading across the planet. Then into space, on the council station, every screen flickered. Alien delegates gasped as their own worlds received the signal. Not a message, not a command, just warmth, like a hug from a long-lost friend. Elder Kalor stood in the observation deck, tears tracing paths down his scaled cheeks. "It's saying thank you," he whispered. The flower lasted only one night. By dawn it had turned to dust, carried away by the wind, but the seed had done its work. It had reminded the galaxy that life wasn't just about surviving, it was about connecting. In the weeks that followed, something remarkable happened. Species that had refused to speak for centuries began exchanging music. The Lumina sent light poems to the Thalassari, who replied with ocean songs. Even the Iron Maw clan transmitted a single tone, a low, mournful hum that, when decoded, meant, "I remember my mother's voice." Drazak never apologized. But one day, he left a small stone at the base of Lisa's sunflower on the council station. Carved into it was one word in human script. "Listen," Lisa smiled. Change didn't always come with fanfare. Sometimes it arrived in silence. Back on Earth, the Arctic sanctuary became a place of pilgrimage, not for answers but for questions. What do I want to leave behind? People would ask. Not my name, not my wealth, but my kindness, my courage, my love. Lisa returned to the council, but she no longer felt like an outsider. She was a bridge, and bridges, she knew, only worked when both sides walked toward each other. One evening, as she sat in the Unity Garden, a young delegate from a newly contacted world approached. They held a small pot with a sprout inside, grown from a seed Lisa had given them weeks before. "It's blooming," the child said, eyes wide. Lisa looked at the tiny green leaf reaching for the light. "It always does," she said gently. "Even after the longest winter." The child sat beside her. "Will the galaxy ever stop fighting?" Lisa thought of Earth's wars, of Zanara Prime, of the vault in the ice. "Maybe not completely," she admitted. "But every time someone chooses to plant a seed instead of firing a shot, we move closer." She looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, other seeds were falling. Other voices were rising. Other hands were reaching. And that was enough, because the deadliest creature in the universe wasn't the Void Maw or the Crimson Hive. It was the belief that we are alone. And Lisa Morgan, the quiet woman from Kansas, had spent her life proving that wrong. Now, the galaxy was starting to believe her. And in that shared belief, a new kind of strength was growing. Not loud, not sharp, but deep, like roots in the dark, holding the world together, one gentle choice at a time. The peace that followed felt fragile, like morning frost on glass. Lisa Morgan knew better than to call it victory. Peace was not a trophy to be mounted on a wall. It was a garden that needed daily tending. And gardens, she had learned, attract both bees and storms. One quiet cycle after the Arctic seed bloomed, a new signal pulsed through deep space. Not from a dying world this time, but from the void between galaxies. The empty stretch where even light grew tired. The signal was simple, a repeating pattern of 3 notes followed by silence. Then again, and again, the council's first instinct was fear. It could be a lure, warned a delegate from the armored Krug. A trap left by the old devourers. But Lisa recognized the rhythm. It matched the heartbeat of the Arctic vault, the same gentle pulse, the same quiet call. "It's not a trap," she said. "It's an invitation." Elder Kalor studied her. "You would go into the intergalactic dark. Alone?" "Not alone," Lisa replied. "I'll take the horizon, and I'll take trust." Despite protests, the council granted her clearance. Drazak watched from the shadows but said nothing. His silence spoke louder than his old threats. The journey took weeks. The horizon slipped beyond the last star, the Milky Way, into a sea of black so deep it felt like falling. Lisa spent her days checking systems, recording thoughts, and talking to the small sunflower she'd brought from her quarters, now potted in recycled station soil. On the 23rd day, the signal grew stronger. Ahead in the endless night, something shimmered. It was not a ship, not a station. It was a ring, vast, ancient, made of a material that drank light and gave back color. As the horizon approached, the ring hummed, the 3-note pulse now clear, almost musical. Lisa slowed her ship. She opened all external sensors, not to scan, but to listen. Then she did something no military protocol would allow. She powered down her engines and drifted. Silence. Then, the ring responded. Light bloomed across its surface. Not harsh, but soft, like dawn on Earth. Patterns formed. Spirals, waves, faces. Human faces. Xenaron faces. Thalassari. Lumina. Hundreds of species woven together in light. The ring wasn't alien. It was a mirror. Lisa understood. This was no weapon, no relic of war. It was a test. Not of strength, but of seeing. Only a species that had learned to see itself and others, with honesty and care, could activate it. She sent a simple reply. A recording of children from Earth singing a lullaby, mixed with ocean waves, bird calls, and the rustle of sunflower fields. The ring glowed brighter. A doorway opened in its center, a tunnel of swirling starlight. Lisa took a breath and flew through. On the other side, time felt different, slower, kinder. She found herself in a vast chamber floating in zero gravity. All around, memory shards drifted like fireflies, each one holding a moment of compassion from across the galaxy. A soldier sharing water with an enemy, a scientist saving a creature she was sent to destroy, a mother singing to her child as bombs fell. And in the center hovered a being. It had no fixed shape. Sometimes it looked like a woman, sometimes like a tree, sometimes like starlight given voice. It spoke without sound, directly into Lisa's mind. You passed the threshold, it said. Not by force. By feeling. Who are you? Lisa asked. We are the keepers of the second chance, it replied. Long ago, our kind seeded the universe with life. Not to rule, not to watch, but to hope. We gave every species the same gift, the choice between fear and love. And most chose fear, Lisa said softly. Many did, but not all. And those who chose love. They became the roots of something new. The being extended a hand, or what looked like one. In its palm rested a small glowing orb. This is the seed of the next cycle. It will grow only where empathy has taken root. You have shown us such a place. Lisa stared at the orb. Earth? Not just Earth. Any world that chooses to heal. Any heart that chooses to listen. What do I do with it? Plant it, not in soil and story. Let it grow in how you treat each other. How you raise your young. How you remember your dead. Lisa reached out. As her fingers touched the orb, warmth spread through her. Not heat, but understanding. She saw visions. Cities powered by kindness. Schools that taught conflict resolution before combat. Leaders who measured success by how many lives they lifted, not how many enemies they crushed. The galaxy is ready, the being said. Not perfect, but ready. Then gently it faded. The chamber dissolved. Lisa found herself back in her ship, drifting near the ring. The orb rested in her lap, pulsing softly. She turned the horizon toward home. When she returned to the council station, she did not announce a discovery. She did not demand a meeting. Instead, she walked to the Unity Garden and dug a small hole in the center. She placed the orb inside and covered it with soil from Earth, Thalassar, Grellis, and Xenara Prime. For days, nothing happened. Then, one morning, a single shoot emerged. It had no leaves, no petals, just a stem that glowed faintly, humming the same three-note pulse delegates gathered. Some knelt, some wept. Drezok stood at the edge of the crowd, his arms crossed, but his eyes soft. Elder Kalor approached Lisa. What is it? A promise, she said, that we can do better. Not because we're strong, but because we care. Word spread. Soon species began bringing their own soil to the garden. The shoot grew taller, branching into delicate limbs that shimmered with shared memories. It became known as the empathy tree, but not everyone welcomed it. Whispers returned. Some feared the tree was a mind control device. Others claimed it made them weak. A small faction led by former purifiers began sabotaging peace outposts, blaming Earth's influence for their losses. Tensions rose. The council wavered. Lisa knew what she had to do. She called for a gathering, not in the grand amphitheater, but in the garden, beneath the empathy tree. She invited every species, every voice, even those who hated her ideas. When they came, she didn't speak of right or wrong. She simply asked one question. What do you want your grandchildren to inherit? A galaxy of walls, or a galaxy of windows? Silence followed. Then a young Krog stood. My grandfather was a warlord. He died alone, feared by all. I do not want that legacy. A lumina filament brightened. We once believed emotion was chaos. Now we see it as connection. Even Drezok stepped forward. He didn't apologize. But he said, "My people were taught that mercy is death. But I've seen mercy feed life, perhaps. We were wrong." That day, the Council signed the first true galactic covenant, not based on mutual defense but on mutual care. It included shared healing centers, youth exchange programs, and a ban on weapons designed to erase entire species. Lisa watched from the back, her hand resting on the empathy tree. Its glow pulsed in time with her heartbeat. Months later, she received a message from Earth. Her sister Maya stood in their sunflower field, now twice as wide as before. Behind her, children from 3 continents played together, planting seeds sent by alien friends. "They're calling it the Lisa Garden," Maya said, smiling. "But I told them it's not about you. It's about us. All of us." Lisa smiled too. She looked out her viewport at the stars, no longer cold and distant but alive with possibility. The deadliest creatures had not been eradicated. They had been transformed, not by fire, but by choice. And Lisa Morgan, the quiet woman from Kansas, knew her work was never really hers. It belonged to every person, every being who chose to plant a seed instead of throwing a stone. The galaxy was still messy, still loud, still learning. But now it was learning together, and that made all the difference. Years had passed since Lisa Morgan first stood in the Galactic Council chamber and spoke of Earth's quiet strength. The empathy tree in the Unity Garden now stretched 3 stories high, its branches shimmering with soft light, its roots woven through soil from over 100 worlds. Children, human, Xenaran, Thalassari, and more, played beneath it, their laughter echoing in a language that needed no translation. Lisa was older now. Her hair held streaks of silver, and the lines around her eyes spoke of both sorrow and joy. She no longer wore the plain gray jumpsuit. Instead, she dressed in simple robes woven from fibers gifted by many species, a thread of lumina light, a strand of krog silk, a leaf from Grellis. She had become something more than an ambassador. She was a living bridge. But peace, as she often reminded others, was not a state of being. It was a practice. And like any practice, it required constant attention. One morning, a new signal arrived, not from deep space, but from Earth itself. It was faint, buried under layers of old data from the early space age. Scientists had found it while cleaning up orbital debris. A looping message from the very first human satellite to carry a golden record, launched over a century ago. The message had been damaged, corrupted by time and radiation, but one phrase remained clear, repeating like a heartbeat. "We are here. We are listening." The council was stunned. "You sent this into the void?" asked Elder Kalor, now stooped with age but still sharp-eyed. "Yes," Lisa said softly. "Not to claim territory, not to warn, just to say we exist, and we hope you do too." The discovery sparked a wave of reflection. Species across the galaxy began digging through their own archives, finding forgotten attempts at connection. Songs sent into the dark, carvings left on dead moons, silent beacons blinking with lonely hope. They had all been reaching, long before they met. They just hadn't known the other hand was outstretched too. To honor this, the council declared a new holiday, Day of the First Call. On that day, every world would go silent for 1 hour. Not out of fear, but out of respect. Then they would send a single sound into space. A child's laugh, a mother's lullaby, the rustle of leaves, the crash of waves. Not as a signal of power, but of presence. Lisa returned to Earth for the first celebration. She landed not at a military base or a capital city, but in a small town in Kansas where her grandmother's house still stood, now a museum of quiet courage. The field of sunflowers stretched farther than ever, tended by volunteers from around the world. Maya, now a teacher, greeted her with a hug that lasted a full minute. "They're calling you the mother of the new age," Maya whispered. Lisa shook her head. "I just reminded people what they already knew." That evening, the whole town gathered in the field. As the sky darkened, every light on Earth and across allied worlds dimmed for 1 hour. Silence fell, deeper than any Lisa had known. She closed her eyes and listened to the wind, the crickets, the breath of those around her. Then, at the appointed time, a single voice rose, a young girl no older than 6, singing a simple lullaby her great-grandmother had taught her. Around the world, other voices joined. A drum beat from Africa, a flute from the Andes, a chant from Siberia, a hum from the Pacific Islands, and from orbit, the empathy tree's pulse synced with the song, sending its light rippling through space, On the council station, even Drazok stood bareheaded, his old armor set aside. He placed a hand on the tree's trunk and whispered, "We are here." Back on Earth, Lisa felt something shift, not in the sky but in the ground beneath her feet. The sunflowers turned not toward the moon but toward each other as if in recognition. The next morning a new message arrived, not from the past but from the future. It came from a star system no one had mapped before on the far edge of the local group. The signal was weak but clear. It contained no words, no images, just a single seed pod encoded in light. Attached was a note in basic standard. "You listened. Now we grow," Lisa smiled. The circle was widening, but not all welcomed the change. Deep in the outer colonies, a splinter group calling themselves the True Heirs had formed. They believed the empathy movement had made the galaxy soft, vulnerable. "Compassion is a luxury," their leader, a former strategist named Vorlon, declared in a broadcast. "And luxury dies first in war." They began attacking peace outposts not to conquer, but to prove a point, that fear still ruled. The council debated a military response. Old instincts stirred. Lisa asked for one more chance. She traveled alone to Vorlon's stronghold, a barren moon orbiting a dead star. No weapons, no shield, just a satchel with bread, water, and a single sunflower seed. Vorlon met her at the airlock, armored and scowling. "You come to preach?" "I come to eat," Lisa said simply, "and maybe talk." To everyone's surprise, Vorlon let her in. For 3 days they sat in silence, sharing meals. On the 4th, he spoke. "My daughter died in the last border skirmish. The peacekeepers arrived too late. I swore then that kindness was a lie. I lost my best friend in a riot," Lisa replied. "I wanted revenge too, but revenge only builds bigger prisons." She handed him the seed. "Plant this." "Not for me." "For her." Vorlon stared at it. Then slowly, he took it. Weeks later, the True Heirs disbanded. Vorlon turned his base into a healing center for war orphans. He named it the First Seed. Lisa returned to the council, weary but hopeful. She knew the work would never end. New fears would rise, old wounds would ache. But now, there was a path forward, and others were walking it with her. One evening, as she sat beneath the empathy tree, a young delegate approached. It was the same child who had once asked if the galaxy would ever stop fighting. Now taller, their eyes held both doubt and determination. "I've been chosen to lead my world's first peace envoy," they said, "but I'm afraid I'll fail." Lisa plucked a glowing leaf from the tree and placed it in their hand. "You will fail, many times, but each time you choose to try again, you prove that love is stronger than fear." The child nodded, clutching the leaf like a compass. As they walked away, Lisa looked up at the stars. Earth was no longer a pale blue dot in the eyes of the galaxy. It was a beacon, not of technology or might, but of heart. She thought of all the hands that had planted seeds, sung songs, shared bread, and dared to listen. The work had never been hers alone. It belonged to everyone who believed in a gentler way, and in that shared belief the universe was healing. One quiet choice at a time. Lisa Morgan closed her eyes and smiled. The wind carried the scent of sunflowers, salt water, and distant rain. Somewhere a child laughed. Somewhere else a stranger offered water to an enemy. The deadliest creatures had not been destroyed. They had been loved into becoming something new. And that, more than any weapon or war, was the true story of Earth.